So as promised, I'm going to rebuild a couple of my winches. I've got a Harken 3-speed winch for my jib sheath, and I've got a Harken 42, or sorry, a Lewmar 42 for my halyards. I've also got 2 Lewmar 6s and 2 Lewmar 40s, I think. I don't have the 40s yet, they were a gift and I haven't picked them up yet. But basically I'm going to rebuild those winches, and I'm going to try and go step by step through them and show you how it's done. It's actually very, very easy to do. As long as you follow the steps, and if you get an exploded diagram. So I've attached the exploded diagrams of these winches in the link in the description. So basically do it systematically and just make sure you remember where everything goes. Take photos of everything as you're going. Take a photo of each piece. If you don't know what it is or where it goes, or if you aren't 100% sure where it goes, take a photo. And that's pretty much the best advice I can give you. So let's get started. Step 1 is to start with a pretty tidy workbench. Once you've spent some time tidying up your workbench properly and putting everything where it should go, put your winch on the bench and start figuring out how it can come apart. So look around what fasteners are there and see how it goes together. Your exploded diagram is going to be really helpful here. On this specific winch we have 2 machine screws on the top, and we also have a pretty big machine screw that goes down through the splines for the winch handle. So if we take those off, we'll be able to get a bit more into the winch and see how it goes together. So these Harken winches are actually made in, I think it's Italy. So they are a metric head, so it's a 5mm Allen key to take out these machine screws. And once that's done, this guy can lift off. And then we have a machine screw way down in the bottom here, and that's just a flathead screwdriver. So I'm going to use my Lewmar for that. So once your machine screw is out, this assembly can lift off. This assembly is actually designed to control the 3rd speed on the winch, but there's actually a piece missing from this winch that I've replaced on the other winch. This surround here holds in 2 springs and 2 ball bearings that actually click into this guy here. So there's 2 machined parts on this surface here, and the ball bearing clicks in between them, and it holds the ball bearing, and it keeps the switch in one place. So you can select your 3rd gear. That's missing in this winch, so I only have 2 speeds on it, but I'll show you on the other winch that I've already done how it works. So once you've gotten down this far, you've taken off your 3rd speed and you've taken off the lid of your winch, you can actually lift this guy away. So be very careful as you lift it away, because this winch is actually full of needle bearings, and it's really bloody difficult to keep them in one place. If you drop one, it will explode and it will go everywhere, and I'm not going to relive that situation again. Now we're actually down into the winch itself. This winch is actually a pretty serious piece of kit. It's got 2 pretty sizable needle bearings here, and once you take those off, you have the winch body, and then you have like a kind of a bearing surface for the bottom of the needle bearings. And you get down and you have a few more little rings, and then we have the actual winch base, which is this whole piece here is the winch base. This guy comes off as well, and these 4 machine screws come out, and the whole winch can disassemble completely. So this is what you want to do effectively to get these winches working properly again, is you need to disassemble the whole winch down to all of your subcomponents and soak them in like diesel or in some kind of degreaser. I don't use petrol. Petrol is A, it's really flammable, and B, to be honest, it can melt some plastics. It can melt some of the plastics in these winches. These are all metal components, but there's a plastic casing on this bearing, and if you put that in petrol, there's a chance it might eat it. I did that on a winch before, and one of the bearings, yeah, it melted. There should be a pin in each one of these with a spring-loaded pin on these, but those parts are missing, so I have to actually order those. But that's not essential to the working of this winch. It's only essential to the 3rd speed, which, to be honest, I don't think I'm going to use very much. I think it's more of a sales pitch than anything. Yeah, that guy was a little bit difficult to get off, but it's more just because there's so much crap in this winch. These winches were kind of left in a shed for the last probably, I would imagine, 5 years at least. These winches have been sitting in there. Here's one of our here's one of these needle bearings. There's actually some really small stainless steel needle bearings down in here as well. These actually come into two pieces, so be very, very careful with them, because if I drop this on the ground, it will split and it will go everywhere, and they are really painful to put back together. So when you've got those four fellas out, this guy is just pushed on top. So it's a little bit awkward to get this off. You kind of have to pull it up while wiggling it a little bit. It kind of helps sometimes when you can get a screwdriver under here, just to wiggle it up. I've actually screwed this to the bench as well, and it just makes it a little bit easier with a little bit extra stability. Okay, so this guy is loose now, and it should just lift off. Now this is where you have to be super careful about those needle bearings I was talking to you about. When you lift this off, each one of these has a little needle bearing in it, and if you drop it, you will break it and it is gone, and that's not fun. So let's lift this guy off a little bit. There we go. So this is the main body of the winch. Here's the mounting plate, and then you have the actual winch. Just inspect it and look for any cracks or any kind of bad scoring. I'd be very surprised if you find any, but it's no harm checking anyway. Just make sure that you get all of your washers as well, and make sure you know where they all go, because they can be a bit of a pain. At this point, you should have taken pictures of everything, and you kind of know what's going on in the winch. You know how it goes together, and there shouldn't be any question of how you put it back together. So just make sure you do your due diligence there, and keep everything kind of together. Now you're into the main workings of the winch. You will see that there's a shaft in the middle, and if you listen, these are the pawls that actually make the clicky sound. So because this has got so many different speeds, it's got 3 different speeds, there should be 3 separate sets of pawls. There are 2 in the top of the winch, in the head of it, which control the 3rd speed. And there's 1 here that controls the main speed, and there's a set in here actually that controls the 2nd speed. So you can see that there. So all of this needs to be cleaned. And if I were you, at this point of the build, you should replace all the little springs. So there's little springs that control these pawls, and these are called pawls, these fellas here. They're shaped like a P if you look at them in the right way. Or a B, or a G. Anyway, so they've got springs, and you should change those springs, because they lose some of their springiness, I guess. So change those while you're in here, and make sure you give these a good clean, because these are what actually seize up, and this is what kills winches. The rest can be kind of, you know, worked with, but this is what you need to do. So this is kind of at the point where you should be a bit more methodical, be very, very careful about how things go together, and make sure it goes together the right way, because these gears can be a bit of a pain to put back together. So if I were you at this point, I'd put this to one side, and I'd clean all of your kind of main other components, get them immaculate, clean, dry, and ready to go back on, and then do this bit, because this is just where it gets a little bit more awkward. At this point, you're going to have a lovely box of parts soaking in degreaser, and this is at the point you get your toothbrush, and be careful that it's not a toothbrush can get back into your actual bathroom. If winches are looked after, they will outlast you. They are absolutely such a robust piece of engineering. So now I've got a nice pile of pretty clean winch parts over there. I can start concentrating on the body of the winch. So you just start taking it apart, take all the bits off, remember where everything goes, take pictures of things if you have to, and then just clean those individual parts and put them back together effectively. It's a very simple process, it's like a big jigsaw puzzle. Take it apart, put it back together. It's very, very hard to make a mistake with this. I mean, like, as long as you're kind of taking pictures of stuff and being slow and steady, this really is quite simple. What I've done is I've taken all my pawls and my pawl springs out, I've replaced the springs, and I've given this a very, very good clean. The next stage then is to put a bit of oil on each pawl. Now, when you're putting on the oil, you have to just use a little bit. Don't go crazy, even that's a bit too much. Just use a little bit on each pawl. All you're doing is lubricating these surfaces in the back here, and that's all you want to do. And then these guys can work free, like that. The problem is if you use too much crap, if you use too much lubricant, you're just going to end up getting it all gummy and it's going to just pick up loads of mud and stuff, and yeah, you don't want that. So that's that assembly. That's going to work beautifully now. This guy's all clean and tidy, everything's immaculate, and that's it. That's how it goes. This here is the needle bearings I was talking about. Now they are an absolute pain to put back together when they fall apart. Be super careful even when you're cleaning these. Just let them soak, give them a rinse and a quick polish with a toothbrush and leave it at that. Don't go crazy with them. They will fall apart and they are a pain to put back together. I found it in a spray can, so I can spray it all over my shaft in my winch. Now that I've got my kind of main system back together, I can start reassembling it, and I've got all of my bits in. Everything's kind of sitting there nice. This is lined up well here, and then it should, with a little bit of swearing, fit back together.
2 hours later.
It's very awkward because lots of things have to line up. Just like that. Now you want to make sure everything is lining up before you start screwing it back down, because you don't want to crush anything. But that all looks good, so I can start reassembly. So just make sure that as you work your way through the winch, everything is going back the way that it was made. First mistake is I put this ratchet gear in upside down, so I need to take it off, turn that back down and put it back on. It happens, you just gotta kind of factor in time for making mistakes. You can just about see in this winch we've got a dowel pin on either side, and we have the pawls here as well. That's the third speed of these winches, and to be honest, I'm not that pushed about them. I've got it in one of them, and if I like it then I'll put it back into the other one. But for now I just need to get these winches working, and 2 speeds is more than enough. So I suppose I've got 1 2/3 now. So pretty sweet winches. So there we have it. We have 1 2/3 of 2 big jib winches for the both. So I'm planning on fitting these pretty soon. I want to have these running and I want to figure out where I'm going to put them. That'll give us these 2 really nice, really heavy, really strong jib sheet winches that I'm really happy with. So I cannot wait to fit those and get some actual deck hardware on the boat, which should be pretty exciting.